Who was Stephen J. Foster? You could say he was many things, and he was. But if you ask me, I'll tell you he was the best father any daughter could ever dream of having. It's no secret that through the eyes of this little girl, he was God, as I'm sure many parents are to their children. But even after I grew up, he always remained a God through these eyes. And that is probably no secret either. But this is not a story of a God. That image was crafted from his many talents, intelligence, and wisdom. This is a story about a great father. In recent conversation about our children, a statement was made about children being mad at or hating their parents at one time or another while growing up. This statement was followed by, "Except you girls. You never hated your father. You girls loved your daddy more than anything." And that was true. At that moment, it was a sincerely nice compliment. But through the course of the day and night, this statement echoed over and over in my head, and I truly could not recall a time at any given moment of my life that I had ever felt that I hated my dad, not even for the briefest of moments. And that sincerely nice compliment grew into a really spectacular feeling, because honestly, who can say they haven't hated their parents at one time or another? And in the consciousness of this thought, I found myself pondering a memory I will share momentarily, for this memory brought another memory that I will share as a prelude. But before I share either, I want to draw attention to a thought that I'm sure has been shared by many, and that is that with all the talent, intelligence, and wisdom that my father possessed, he could have been and done just about anything. He could have been and done a lot more than he did or was. So why didn't he? Of course, I can't answer that, but I took comfort in the thoughts that followed the memories I'm about to share. It's not a realization of something I did not know, but rather a greater depth to something I already knew. You see, I have always thought he was a great father, and I held no reservations about telling him so. I had no reservations about defending my feelings of him as a great father. I know he knew of the love I have for him, and that he sat upon a pedestal. He probably even knew he was a god through my eyes, and I can only hope that that gave him great happiness. I only wish that these thoughts had come into my consciousness sooner, so that I might have expressed my gratitude a little deeper and fuller than I have. He had told me once that his father was not a man of kind words. Praise and compliments were extremely rare, and he could only recall 2 times, if I remember correctly, that his father had done so. I don't remember what they were, but the telling of this story stuck in my head, for the moment seemed both out of place and very special at the time. I don't recall the story leading to anything in particular, just that he sat down one day and told it to me. Whatever he had done to earn that praise, Grandpa had told him, "Good job," or "You did well." I didn't ponder it much at the time, but I had gotten a sense that it was a kind of special memory, and I figured it to be so because of the rarity. I figured he was taking the opportunity to make sure he did not follow those footsteps in withholding praise and affection. And indeed he did not, as I have received many kind words from him over the years. But one day, he gave me a memory of my own that I hold with the same feeling that I felt he had at the time he told me that story. I have many memories of his kind words, but this one in particular stands out among them all. So one day I was sitting in his trailer, and I was pondering all the brains of the family. I was thinking of Jesse and Tyler, Amy and Marissa mostly. I was thinking of all the achievements and things different people had done to be proud of. And then I was thinking of myself, and all the things I didn't become or do. And then I was thinking of Dad, and all the things he hadn't done and could have. All these thoughts then brought about that one arch-enemy of a question that has plagued me since the beginning of my school years. What do you want to be when you grow up? Somehow, I've just never been able to answer that question. Even as a child, it was a question too heavy for me to answer lightly, and I felt most people did. Sure, I had a passion once. It was to pursue a career as a vet and open an animal shelter, but somehow that never seemed a satisfactory answer. Being a vet just didn't describe me. It wasn't who I was. It was just another label. A label, as I learned in middle school, would become a norm for the rest of my life. We seem to have a need to label everything. What we are, who we are, how we feel. I hated labels, though I may not have known why at the time. They can be extremely inaccurate. In school it was, "What are you? A rocker? A stoner? A prep? What?" And my answer then was, "I don't know. I'm just me." But that question haunted me. Who was this me that I was? How do I explain who I am? I dressed like a rocker, hung out with the stoners, but I was neither one. Those were just appearances. They weren't who I was. Later it would become, "What nationality are you? Chinese? Japanese? Mexican?" And I found it hard to answer that as well. Korean and 8 other different things? There seemed to be no clear-cut answer. I don't know. I'm a mutt. I'm human. What does it matter? But still it remained all around me. Labels. "Oh, so you're a card dealer. You're a receptionist." No, I worked as those things. They are not me either. But it was the norm to talk in such a way, and so I did my best to ignore that discomfort and just go with the flow of the lingo. So there I sat that day in Dad's trailer, 40-plus years old, and pondering again that plague of a question. Without a career, I was still labelless and trying to figure out where I fit in. I sat there, feeling as if I had done nothing with my life, and wondering if I was a disappointment. We had talked of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, a book about perspectives. He said he had given it to many, but that I was the first woman he had given it to that had ever finished reading it. I don't know why, I thought it was a great book. We used quotes from the book, as we often did from movies, to describe certain moments, like the gumption leak I was clearly having at that moment. But the book talked of tracing down the real reasons to our angers and frustrations, as we are often not really angry or frustrated about what we think we are. And so I began trying to look at the question in a different perspective. Why does that question even bother me? Why does every answer seem so inadequate to the question? Why does it even matter? And suddenly, there it was, an epiphany. The greatest challenge to that question, for me, was that none of it really mattered. It was that same hopeless sense I felt when pondering the purpose of life. We're born, we live a little while, and we die, and that cycle just repeats itself. But to what purpose? I had long concluded that religion existed to give us a sense of purpose, that without purpose we would just die. Faith, hope, religion, our children, our sense of duty, and any other number of reasons we give ourselves to feel that we have a purpose in life is what keeps us going, though personally, I always felt it was a self-delusion that we needed to give ourselves because there really was no purpose. It didn't really matter because we are all going to die one day, and when we do, anything we were or did will only be remembered by those who knew us. And one day, the people that knew us would die, and then it would, more or less, be as if we never existed, except maybe as a photo in the history of a family tree. But I also know that there is generally no direct connection or memories between the researcher and that person, so it's pretty meaningless except as a record that that person once existed. So in that line of thinking, I felt that there was no profession that really mattered. If I became an electrician, it only mattered while I was alive, and there would be someone else to take my place when I was gone. Whether I became a vet or ran an animal shelter, it didn't matter. Profession after profession, career after career, they all ended the same. I was only making a difference while I was alive. That's it! I want to do something that matters, something that would continue to make a difference even after I was gone. Oh, I was on a roll now. So the new question was, what matters? What would make a positive impact on this planet? What imprint could I leave behind? I'm no Einstein, and it's not likely I'll invent anything that is going to benefit mankind for years to come, or do something so great that I land myself in a history book. So what, then, would I need to be in order to leave something behind that outlived me? 40-some years old, sitting in my father's trailer, wondering if I was a disappointment, wondering still what I wanted to be when I grew up, stretching my brain with all the knowledge and perspectives he had given me over the years and trying to put them to good use. I sat there racking my brain while simultaneously appreciating the ability to really reach down and think about the truth of the question and answer before me, instead of just the surface appearance of it. Appreciating all the good things he was handing down to me from his knowledge and experience, that would help equip me to deal with life in more than an annoyingly mundane level of common opinions. Damn, I have a really great father. He has given me so many good things, so much to treasure. That's it. And I told him. I broke the silence and I told him. You know, I've been sitting here thinking of the family and all their accomplishments, and I've done nothing significant with my life, I began. That's not true, he said, still milling about in the middle of his trailer, looking like Winnie the Pooh in search of a honey pot. You had children. That's a big job in itself. Yeah, but a lot of people have children, I said, anxious to get on with my epiphany and feeling like he was just trying to give comfort and soften my lack of significance with a sense of purpose. Yes, child-rearing is a big job, even bigger if you do it well, but it hardly seems significant as it's part of the cycle of life. It's just like graduating high school, just one of those things you're supposed to do in life. I changed my approach and proceeded to tell him of the question that has haunted me. What do you want to be when you grow up? And of the desire to find the answer to that with something really worthwhile, beyond the survival of this life. I said to him, I'm 40-some years old, and I think I finally figured it out. I just want to be a good person. I want to be a good person, and I want to teach my children to be good people, so that they might grow up and teach their children to be good people. And I know that might seem like a really small thing, but it's the only thing I can think of that might last beyond my lifetime, that might actually matter or make a difference. And he stopped his Winnie the Pooh milling about, doing whatever Pooh Bear-looking fathers do when they're doing that, and he turned around and looked at me. I don't know what I expected his response to be, but I can tell you I certainly didn't expect that slight teary-eyed expression when he said to me, "No, it's not." What he said after that I cannot quote because I was a bit startled by the expression on his face, but basically he said it was a really big thing. And then he said something else that I don't remember because I'm sure my brain had just gone all out trying to decipher that expression, and I had to force myself to tune back in. In retrospect, I think he had asked me about the title to the story he then told me. A lady was at church, and there were 3 gentlemen sitting next to her, dressed in suits and ties. At the end of the sermon, a dish was passed around for donations. When the dish came to her, she put $5 and some odd cents into the dish and passed it to the gentleman next to her. He took the dish, pulled $20 out of his wallet, and laid it in the dish and passed it on to his friend. His friend, not wanting to be outdone, pulls a 50 out of his wallet and lays it in the dish. The third guy says, "You cheap bastards," and he pulls out a $100 bill and puts it in the dish. So they're kind of badgering and mocking each other, and the first guy says, "Yeah, well, at least it's more than $5. The priest, who was walking up to retrieve the dish, asks, "Why are you mocking this lady's contribution? She has given more than any of you." And they looked at the priest, and the second guy says, "What do you mean?" The first guy says, "Yeah, I put in $20, and he put in 50. And the third man says, "And I put in more than both of them put together." The priest looks at them and says, "But she put in everything she has." Dad looked at me and said, "You can't give more than everything." I know I felt touched, and that what he was telling me was something special and significant, but I don't think I really grasped the magnitude or the honor of what he was telling me. Now, as I said before, I once had a passion to become a vet, and I had begun to pursue that passion when I found out I was pregnant and I could not be around the chemicals, so I withdrew. Sure, I could have continued again, but by this time I had 2 children, and was under no illusion that doing both school and kids would be easy. The program I wanted to do required a 3.8 GPA, and Dad had told me I might as well go for the 4.0 because I would be competing with everyone else that wanted into that program. Not to mention that I wanted to do good because this was my passion. I found myself faced with a decision. I could be a half-ass vet and a half-ass mom, or I could choose one or the other to be good at. Not saying I accomplished my goal at being good at it, but obviously I chose my children. Now, I have to wonder at this point if Dad was faced with that same decision. He could have been anything, and he often said he would have done the things Marissa is doing had he not had us girls. And while he could have been and done anything, I can say that what he did best was being a father. As I said before, it's not a realization of something I didn't know, but a deeper understanding of what I already knew. And what I want to share is a kind of inside view that may have been slightly overlooked. You see, as I pondered the thought of what he might have given up in order to be that really amazing parent, undivided and 100%, I began to take an even deeper gratitude for how much he was always there for us. Raising children is indeed a big job in itself. Doing it well is even harder. There are a lot of great parents out there, and there are a lot of really shitty parents as well. And most of us, no matter how shitty or great, have our moments. I'm sure he had his as well, but this is what I can tell you about the father he was. There is no time around the clock that I couldn't call him or pop in at his house. Yes, a lot of people say that, and mean it, or offer it during distressing times. But do you ever find yourself thinking, oh, I know I can, but I don't want to wake them up. Or, oh, they're probably at work. I don't want to disturb them. Or any number of reasons that makes you not want to disturb that person unless you absolutely have to. And then, even when you do, you still kind of feel a little guilty about it. With Dad, it wasn't like that. 1 p.m., 3 a.m., 4:15, it didn't matter, and those thoughts didn't go through my head when it came to him. I just picked up the phone and called, or I just drove to his house and knocked. It wasn't a lack of courtesy. It was truly okay with him at any given moment in time, because he always had time, even if he had to make it or wake up for it. It was like he just bottled it up and saved it for us. Maybe there's been a time or two, though I can't say I recall one, that he ever said, I have to take this call. Let me call you back. Or, can I call you back later? I'm kind of busy right now. He never said, well, I'm about to drive, so I gotta let you go. He would just call the person back after he got off the phone, or he'd put the phone on speaker and drive. There was nothing he was doing that couldn't wait. We never came second, not to anything. He didn't have days off, he didn't have sick days, and sometimes, thanks to us calling at insane hours like 4 a.m. to make sure he was alive and not dying, he didn't have sufficient sleep either. If he had a personal life, I'd have to say it came second, because I didn't know about most of them. And even those I did know about never got in my way. Around the clock, every day of the year, he was there for us. Well, for me at least. I can't really say for sure if that's true for my sister, as I know my ringtone would wake him up, and hers did not. But if he was asleep, he woke up, at least for me, and he was never grumpy or agitated about it. It didn't even have to be important. Whatever moment I chose, for whatever reason, he was there. Even if I said, it's okay, Dad, it's nothing important, he would say, it's okay, I'm up now, and he would be. If he was doing something, he stopped. Nothing was more important than us, and I simply cannot recall a time he wasn't there when I needed him. I'm hard-pressed to think of a time he wasn't there when I didn't need him. So maybe, just maybe, the reason he wasn't more was because he chose to be what he was, the best father ever.